Welcome to the Luke Coutinho Show, where we can learn to reimagine our lifestyle.
Welcome to Reimagine Your Lifestyle. Over the last couple of weeks and months, you've been listening to doctors from across the world, specialists, mind healers, and a whole load of different experts from around the world. But today it's going to be a little bit different. I want us to reimagine our lifestyle when it comes to child nutrition, teenagers, the problems that parents face, the problems that children face. And these are frequently asked questions that we get almost every day across, not just from our patients, but even from social media and platforms and people writing in. So today we're going to talk about all of these things that are most frequently asked. And for that, I have Mugdha, who is going to be with me on our podcast today. Thanks, Mugdha, for being here.
Hi, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. So, thank you.
Tables have turned today, Luke, on popular demand. How does it feel to be a guest on your own show?
Yeah, I think it's actually unique. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling because at the end of the day, the show is really about sending out the right message, the right content to people, because there's an overdose of content. Mugdha, even I get confused sometimes. If I find myself mindlessly scrolling on social media and through accounts, I find myself confused in 10 minutes with so much of content coming, hitting us from all sides. So I'm happy to be here on my own show, our own show, Mugdha. You played a huge role, you and Bhaumik, on this show from the start. So it feels good to be on this show today.
Thank you, Luke. Like you said, parenting today is a different ball game altogether. Our parents, maybe read a book or two, or perhaps not even that, and they went with the instinct and, just with the flow. But today, with, so much content out there, reel after reel, parents are so confused. They don't know whether, good parenting, harsh parenting, easy parenting, we as parents are all confused. So it is best that we've compiled a list of questions that our audience have asked, and I'm going to be asking you those, and we can't wait to hear the answers.
Oh, thanks, Mugdha. Before we actually start, I want to go back to what you said, because I think that's where most problems start to happen. Parents are always kind of worried about the role that they're playing. Am I a good parent? Am I a bad parent? Am I an effective parent? Am I a harsh parent? The whole thing is, the truth at the end of the day is, no parent ever gets trained to be a parent. And even though we may read books how to parent, it's all great. We should. But the dynamics of every family is different. Okay. You may have so many visions when you want to start off being a parent, but then you have in-laws, you have a child who's different. You have an environment which is different. You have constant content that is different. You have school structures which are different. So I think I want to just take that pressure of parents and just be the best that you can be. Just be a parent. There's never going to be a perfect parent. Never. Because each parent is learning in their own journey. But I think the system can be better when we actually sit down and we try to take away learnings from our parents. Like, I can tell you honestly right now, were my parents perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There were great things about them, which I take and I try to put into my life as a parent. And there were things which I remember my dad saying that, hey, if you don't like it, then you just do it differently with your kid. But right now, I think this is the best way for it to be. And I think it's so important for us as parents to remove labels that we put on ourselves and actually look at the journey holistically, because it's always going to be different at every phase. Mugdha, I see so many parents literally manifesting what's going to happen in their life. Their children have not even become teenagers, but they're talking about tweens and angry tweens and literally bringing on problems that may never occur in their life. Are all teenagers bad? Absolutely not. Are all infants keeping parents awake? No. Are all terrible ones and terrible twos and tantrum threes? Does every parent go through that? The answer is no. But people talk about it like they're going to expect it. They're always talking about it like it's good, it's got to be bad. And it's not always that way. So I want to take that pressure off parents right now and say that we got to look at the journey in front of us very holistically. Every day is going to be different, so don't put yourself into a box.
Absolutely, Luke. I absolutely agree with you. As a parent, there's always this dilemma that whether you want to be a friend to your child, but you also want to maintain that level of authority. So how do you advise that we parents strike a balance where a child feels comfortable coming to us if they're ever in any problem without the fear of judgment, but also respects the boundaries that we set for them?
Great. So Mugdha, the way I want to answer this question is with self-reflection. Okay, because I'm no one to preach to any parent out there. Absolutely not. I'm no one to preach about health to anyone. What we do is we teach people, we inspire people through our learnings. Now, forget about parents and children. As an individual, a parent is obviously in a relationship with a partner. What does this particular person want from their partner? Do they want their partner to be a friend? Do they want their partner to be a lover? Do they want their partner to just pay the bills or stay at home while the other partner works? We put all these kind of labels. A parent needs to be a parent. A lover needs to be a lover. A wife needs to be a wife. A husband needs to be a husband. Now, all of these roles will encompass everything that you spoke about. When to be a friend, when to be assertive. Like in a relationship, you also need to be assertive with a partner. Otherwise, you become a doormat. You need to be able to respectfully say what is okay and what is not okay with your partner. So the point is, the game is the same. It's the label that kind of brings in all the confusion. So the same way we want to be treated in our relationships by our partners is exactly the same way a child wants to be treated. There are three components that every human being needs. And I'll bring it back to the parent thing. You need love, you need a sense of belonging and security, and you need validation and attention, compliments, appreciation, all of that stuff. If a partner doesn't get this in their relationship, there are problems, big problems. If a child doesn't get this from a parent, there are big problems as well. So now as a parent, to ensure that you're getting these three basic foundations, what role does that parent have to play at every stage? Now, this is when it comes in. I can't tell you, be a friend when this happens. Be assertive when this happens. Some children are different. Some children, when they're involved in a decision, like, hey, if I'm trying to stop my daughter from drinking aerated drinks, I'm going to use a very different approach because it works for me. It doesn't have to work for another parent. I'm not going to scare her and say, this can cause cancer, this can do this, make you put on weight. I'm not going to say, this company's bad, this company's bad. I'm going to involve her that, hey, we have a product in front of us. This is what it can do if you consume it too much. Now, what are your thoughts about it? Okay, because my daughter is different. When I say different, her relationship and me, we like talking, we like involving. I don't like saying, don't do this. But now if there's a snake in the compound and she's moving too close to the snake curiously, I will use it as stop right there. Don't even move. Don't even move. I will use different methods that I think are best according to the way I know my child. And that's why I always tell a parent, go back to your relationship. Okay. And you look, what do you want to feel like a human being? And that is the same thing a kid wants from their parents. So if you want time from your husband, okay, when I say you, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking hypothetically. If someone wants time from their husband, a kid wants time from you. It's the same feeling. How do you feel when you don't? Any parent out there, how do you feel when you don't get time from your partner? That's exactly how your child is going to feel when they don't get time from you. So it's very difficult. Yes, we have to play all roles. I've seen some families, because there are patients today, where children are addicted to drugs, alcohol, social media, gambling at the age of 14, 15, and 16. But when we break down these relationships and family, a lot of these kids got so much of love from their parents, but pampered love. Anything they wanted, they got it. This didn't make them feel more loved. This made them feel more entitled. So you see, there's a big, big difference. While we give love, we also need to know where we need to, inflict discipline, when we need to say no. And since you asked me a personal question, the way I see it, because I've learned this from my parents, I've seen this in father-son relationships, Mugdha. Okay? If a father does not approve of a son, there are huge issues that son is going to grow up with in their teenage years, in their childhood, in their 20s and 30s, even when they start working, and even when they're 50 and 60. The human soul requires approval. There's a father-son relationship, there is a daughter-father relationship, and there's a mother-daughter relationship as well. Each of them fulfill different roles. The important part is when that approval isn't there. And I've had fathers come to me and I've told them, the way to fix your son is you need to give him approval. And the son will say, but he's done this. Great. You need to tell him that, hey, listen, let's say Mark, for example. Mark, I don't like this behavior of yours. I love you. You're my son. I love you. I approve of you, but I do not like this behavior. We need to reinstate approval. So if I am going to discipline my daughter, I first reinstate approval with her. That, hey, I love you. You're my daughter. That's never going to change. But right now, we need to discuss about what happened, what you did, because this is hurting other people. This is hurting yourself. But every human being needs to be reminded of approval. Now, what happens in adult relationships? Blackmail, emotional blackmail, silent treatment. I won't talk because you said this. What are we doing? Right? What are we doing? We're not encouraging open communication. We're not encouraging the freedom and honest space to be ourselves. We take the same behavior down to our children. And then we want to be their friends. We want to be their friends. But we've already created this space which doesn't allow us to be that. So then we say, come on, let's go to the amusement park. We're friends. Let's hang out. We're friends. Children can see through this crap like anything because children, they think and they feel. Most adults, we only think right now. We don't feel too much. We think what's right. What's every parent doing? What's the school saying? What's society saying? What's influencers saying? Children feel. They can feel through our crap so easily. And that's why my answer to you is it's always going to be different. But what do we want in our relationships is the same thing that we take to our children. So when do I play the role of a friend? Like I wouldn't call my daughter, honestly, a friend. She's my daughter. She's my daughter. Like with certain friends, I'm fake with certain friends. Friends who only want free stuff from me, I have a very different attitude towards them. Very true friends, I will express everything to them, share with them, spend all my time with them. But for me, my daughter is just a human being who's my daughter. What does she need at every point in her life? I'll decide the role I have to play. So I don't want people being caged up into different roles that they have to play because there are names for these things. Now, this is what I feel. But again, I believe it's not what we think is right for a child. What do children need? Children need a safe space to be themselves, express themselves without ridicule, without the authority of a parent saying that I'm the parent, do what I tell you to do. Yes, of course we have authority as parents, but we don't have to reinstate I'm the parent, do what you do. I can still reinstate authority without using position. That's when I command respect from a child. And that's what we all want. So that's my take on this question, Mugdha.
Very well said, Luke. I love your point on approval. It is very important for a child to feel, validated when they have negative emotions and because we all experience it. But I find sometimes that parents are very quick to solve every problem that a child comes across, or whether it's a child is feeling frustrated, a parent would quickly give them a gadget or something to just make them feel better immediately. What do you think? How is it affecting these children in long term?
All right, it's affecting big time. Now, let me go back with another analogy, okay? I grew up in Goa. I had a lot of friends who were drug dealers. I touch wood never got into drugs, but I was always intrigued in understanding how their business works. And, how do you get customers? They said, we don't have to market. No one markets drugs, right? It just happens. And they said, very simple. When people are low, when people are sad, when people are going through emotional downfalls, okay, we know which drug makes them feel good. And we're just there for them. When they feel low, we just give them more. And that's how they get addicted. This is how children get addicted to gadgets. Simple. Every child is not addicted to a gadget. It isn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this conversation, right? Every child is not addicted. Some are. And what we need to realize is, again, we're not allowing them to be themselves. If a child is bored, okay, it's not our job to solve that problem all the time. Let them be bored. Let them be bored. In fact, some of the most creative people in the world are at the top today because they went through something called boredom. And it's in that boredom, right? Now, in that boredom, a child can be very, very creative. They can have a whole tea party with a little tea set and plastic cups and and they can make a whole story around it, right? But if we give them a gadget, we're not teaching them to think. We're not teaching them to learn how to deal with boredom. Okay, some of the best things that help us deal with boredom as adults? Alcohol, drugs, smoking, and every single vice. I'm bored today, let's go shopping. I'm bored today, let's go and smoke up. So you see, everything starts from the journey of a child being a child. So it's very important for us to understand, you may want to give them the gadget, but hey, you're just putting a Band-Aid over a problem. A child is sad, maybe let them be sad for a while. You can be them. Maybe they don't want to speak to you right now. That's absolutely fine. But by giving them a gadget, you're teaching them, you're giving them the drug that the drug dealer was giving one of their clients. It's just a different form of a drug. If you ask me, it's way more addictive. But the point is, That's why we allow for space between everything. There is always, the magic is the space between reaction and a response. It's the same thing with this. So if a child is actually saying that, hey, I'm bored, okay, it's good to be bored. Why are we making things like bored or sadness or feeling angry something bad? I'm feeling angry. Okay, let's calm down. Let's do this. Let's do it. Let them be angry. Let them exhaust the feeling of anger so we can have a conversation with them. How do you feel when you're angry? What thoughts do you have when you're angry? What do you feel like doing when you're angry? We're not allowing that inner beauty of a child to come out because, hey, we put a Band-Aid on, which is a gadget, and obviously it's going to solve their problems because they're getting dopamine, right? They're going to feel good. So I would say respect the space in between. And part of giving an honest space for children to grow and develop and talk is this space for them to think, express themselves. Of course, if people are already addicted and we take away the gadget now, there's going to be tantrums, there's going to be anger, but that's part of the healing process. That's exactly what happens in rehabilitation with drug addicts, right? They go through a withdrawal symptom, they're angry, they're violent, but they have to go through that before the healing starts. And some of our children have to go through that as well for their healing to start.
Absolutely, Luke. Another point when you're talking about gadgets, my daughter is 10 and literally half her class already has a smartphone. This is one question that I think most parents are conflicted about. What is the right age when you give your child the first smartphone, and what are the factors we should consider before giving them their first phone?
I want to answer this based on what many doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and parents have said when it comes to the best answer. There is no best answer. The best answer is as late as possible. See, right now, Mukta, everyone's a social experiment. We don't know we're seeing the outcome. We're slowly seeing the outcome in depression, ADHD, autism, behaviors, the consumption of junk food, sleep deprivation because of social media and screen time. We're seeing it. The overall outcome has still not yet hit us. We're all parts of the experiment. So an answer over here is the least is the best. The lesser is better. Now, I know most people ask, and again, I'm not here to preach, okay? My point is, I always ask myself, what is my why power when it comes to my kid? It's what I think is best for my kid. Now, a lot of kids will come, and everyone has this, and a lot of parents say that, oh, they'll go through social anxiety, they'll go through deprivation because half the class has it. The truth is, have you spoken to your child? Are these the ideas that the parents are inflicting because of parents are talking to one another and everyone feels everyone else's problems are going to become their problems? A lot of kids that I know are absolutely fine. It's really not a problem. It's the problem that a lot of parents make. Their fears that they project. But a parent should be able to handle this. That's fine. They have it. You don't have it. That's absolutely fine. I know so many kids who don't even have a phone, and most of their classes have it. They're doing well. They have a social life. They have friends. They are absolutely fine. It is the way the parent addresses this. Again, through involvement, through telling them the pros and the cons, through also putting like your daughter, my daughter, they're going to have an iPad very soon in school. It's compulsory. And it's okay. I'm not going to fight the system, but I am going to put in my protocols. If you need X amount of time on an iPad, how much time have you spent outdoor? If you have X amount of time of screen time, show me your exercise time. That's how we build cultures to support it. There's nothing wrong with screen time. There's everything wrong with the overdose of screen time and what content children are consuming. So the problem really isn't that. When we're able to involve our children with the right understanding, and also you allow them to choose their friends groups. As parents today, I think the biggest issue is parents are losing control. They're scared to tell their children to change the company that they keep. Now that's where we are supposed to nurture. As parents, we go through that experience. A child doesn't know. A teenager is going to conform with what is the coolest. But we need to go. Most parents are trying to tell children what to do. We have to stop telling. We have to start inspiring. We have to start inspiring children through stories, through examples, that it's absolutely okay. I want data to show me how many children are depressed because they don't have a phone and everyone else has. I can guarantee you the numbers are going to be minimum because most people have this fear in their head. Oh, how will my children feel? One parent will say, oh, my child's going through this and this because they don't have a phone and stuff. And then that story becomes the story of 10 other parents who are in that same WhatsApp group. We should never make other people's story our own story. We should be so confident to realize. So tell me, I mean, it's the same thing. So tomorrow, if they legalize marijuana at 16 years old, and every kid is doing it, as a parent, are we going to say, hey, everyone's doing it, let our kids do it? Somewhere we need to understand that as parents, we own that responsibility to find different ways to do it. And it's easy when you have beautiful communication with a child, when you spend time with a child, when you involve a child, when a child feels truly loved, validated, and safe. Okay, they can develop other hobbies other than just having a phone. They can still have the phone, but it doesn't become their go-to. They're not addicted to it because they have other stronger energies to come back to, which is time with parents, real hobbies, things that make them feel like a child and like a teenager.
Wow, Luke, this was brilliant. You've answered my next 2, 3 questions already. But you're talking about teenage anxiety and depression, and we all know that the rates have gone up through the roof. And I think failure, not being able to accept failure, is a big part of that. How do we teach our kids that failure is a normal part of life and teach them to cope with it constructively, whether it's, in the academics, sports, or even in relationships?
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is every parent is a leader. Okay, sit down your child and your teenager and tell them all the times that you failed in life. Show them. And show them, don't just show them as a lesson that, oh, because I failed, you can fail. No, take it further. Each failure that we've gone through as adults, what have we done with those failures? Like, I've taken a lot of my failures and I've made lessons out of them. Some of these failures have been protection for me. Some of these failures have been motivation for me to be better. So when we involve them with stories, teenagers and children love storytelling. Teach your teenagers and children through stories. You be vulnerable enough to show them. A lot of parents want to just show that they're perfect. And this comes from trying to be perfect in society, and you're trying to be perfect in your own, role as a parent. The point is, we have to be vulnerable. We have to show that we've also failed. And at the same time, I don't think any child or any adult would like, hey, look at all the successful people in the world. They all failed and they're successful today. I don't think anyone wants to hear that. But we want to hear and show that, hey, life is not always perfect. And that's why it goes back to school. Everyone is not a winner. I think the one thing I hate about not all schools today, most schools, is everyone's a winner. Everyone is not a winner. If you are second, you are second. Period. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, if you came fourth in your race, your running race, you're fourth in your running race. You're not a winner. You're not a winner. You won fourth place. That's it. Because the point is, when these teenagers step out into the real world and they realize that everyone is not a winner, that's when they need a shrink. That's when they need therapy, because it just hits them. It just hits them all the time. I think it's every parent's duty to tell every child and teenager that not everyone is going to love you. Not everyone's going to respect you. Not everyone is going to agree with you. Okay? Teach them these things. It builds your bond, because when they step out into the classrooms and into colleges, this is exactly what they get. All of a sudden, go around, oh, everyone will love you. You're such an amazing child and teenager. Oh, you're so smart. Everyone's going to be. Yeah, it's not the real world. It is so important for us to establish these guidelines. Yeah, Mugdha, I'm going to say it straight up on the podcast. A lot of society has become emotionally weak and fragile. And that weakness is defining the new generation below. The sense of entitlement, the sense of, I have money, I can do whatever I want. All of that. You can have all the money in the world, but you teach a child humility. You teach a child how to be humble. You teach a child that, hey, everyone's not going to love you. Every relationship, I think every mother has to have this, conversation with a daughter, fathers with a son, and if they have great relationships, both of them together. That, hey, every time you fall in a relationship doesn't mean it has to be the one that is going to last forever. That's the movies, that's the books you're reading, those are the songs you listen to. That's not real life. Real life is, and sometimes it's great that your relationship may not work out because you're still learning. You're still learning. What's hurting you is your heart, but a lot of it is your ego. And we have to be that vulnerable to speak to our children and teenagers about it, because then they don't go in with these false expectations that all the movies, all the songs, all of that, just showing that everything is perfect and a bubble. We need to break that habit immediately. Immediately break that. And that can only happen with communication. It can only happen with honest communication. And we need to teach them it's okay to fail. What's wrong with one broken relationship? But it's also good to teach them, who were you in that relationship? Most mothers will support the daughter, fathers the son. Yeah, it was that person. Sometimes we need to turn the mirror on our own children and show them that, what was your role in this relationship that didn't work out? What are the things that you did? You said the things that you have to change, because we always want to make our children look perfect in every role of life, but we set them up for failure. So I believe a parent should be able to love to no degree unconditionally, and also be able to be so brutally honest, respectfully, showing them approval, showing them that they're loved, reminding them that they're approved and loved for, but get the message across. I have children today who are now in jail, okay, in Abu Dhabi, Dubai. And I met them a couple of times. Some of them are on payroll, some of them are out, and they have this hatred for their parents. The parents didn't do anything wrong to get them in jail. It's just that why did my parents not teach me what they were supposed to teach me about life? I don't want to go into these individual cases, but a lot of these children were so pampered that they thought that's what life should be. A lot of them are in jail because of that. And we have to understand this, that what is the role we want to play? Do we want to be liked? A parent in a relationship with a partner who doesn't feel loved by their own partner will try to get a child to love them that much. Every human is here to get their needs met. And sometimes we find ourselves doing this with our own kids. And we got to be so careful that we fulfill ourselves, that we don't try to get this love and we spoil our children just to get that, I love you, mommy, I love you, daddy, because you're not feeling that love in your own life at your current relationship. Every human needs to look down. In fact, when parents come to me with anxiety and depression, before we decide where to send them, psychologists, psychiatrists, there's one simple exercise I do with every parent. You break down your anxiety and your depression into needs that are not met. Forget about everything else. I don't want to know about your good days, your bad days, your highs and your lows. Let's first break down anxiety and depression into needs not met. And Mugdha, most cases start off with needs not being met by a husband, by a wife, by a parent, by a boss, by a friend, by a colleague, or needs which were never met by an ex in a previous relationship and now they're not being met in this relationship. It is so important for us to identify that. Otherwise, who gets the brunt of it? Children. We're trying to get our needs not met by the role of our partners that should be played from our children. And most parents do this subconsciously and unconsciously, some even consciously with their child, which is why when you see some divorce cases happening, okay, I mean, I'm all for divorce. I'm all for people living a happy life. But when it comes to one partner trying to brainwash a child against a parent, okay, I mean, that's absolutely a red flag. It just goes to show you the amount of unmet needs that this woman or man has gone through. Go through a divorce. But your prime goal is to make sure that your child does not get affected with the three wants, which is love, a sense of belonging, and validation. Some parents do it beautifully, and they have the most amazing relationships even after divorce. And some screw up the kid at every level that the child now needs therapy at 13, 14, and 15, which can be avoided when responsible parents. I'm not saying stay locked up in a marriage that is unhealthy for you, your partner, and your child. Divorce for all the right reasons, but you got to take personal responsibility to make sure that your child is protected in these three ways. Otherwise, they are going to grow up scarred. Every divorce and every child of a divorced family isn't scarred. It's absolutely untrue. In fact, some of them are way better than kids who are stuck in horrible family lives with relationships and parents who are toxic and stuff like that. But the media just tries to show you that, oh, divorce is negative. Divorce is, of course, try hard to maintain what you have. But if you can't, you can't. But then what's the next best thing you do? Make sure your child is not compromised of any of these three things. Otherwise, yes, you are doing a disservice to that child. And sometimes it is. Husband is alcoholic. Today in India, I have to say wife is alcoholic because it's both ways. Husbands are getting beaten by alcoholic wives. Wives are getting beaten by alcoholic husbands. It's incredible the amount of cases that we see like that. Then you get a therapist in who can still come and be that neutral party, that soundboard for a child, because some parents are just incapable. Some parents are bipolar. Some parents are schizophrenic. They're not capable to maintain these three foundation blocks of a child. And that is where you bring in a child psychologist, a therapist, an emotional counselor who can at least make sure the child is getting what they need and help the parents through this.
Wow, Luke, that's really deep. Talking about resilience and mental toughness in the day of social media, children, I think as young as 11, 12, have body image issues today. I see them starving already, and some are pushing, rushing to the gym, but not for the right reasons, just to look a particular way. How do we raise our children to have a healthy sense of self-esteem?
I'll be honest with you, Mugda, it's very difficult because it's all around. Look around everywhere on the billboards, television ads, everything talks about body image today. It's very difficult. And then children are seeing their own parents. We have so many children who see their mums all the time in the mirror or their dads all the time flexing biceps, all of that. So they begin to think that, hey, this is what it should be. One is social media. Two is, what is the message society is sending to our children? Before the weekend starts on Thursday, everyone's starting to get their hair done, all of that stuff. I mean, look at the pressure it puts on children. The only message a child sees is, oh, I need to do this in order to be social. I need to do this before I step out into society to socialize. These are indirect messages men and women are sending children. Society is sending children. So it's not just social media. Social media is a whole different game because every second screen that you see is honestly all lies. I mean, I've seen some of these people in real life, Mugda, and it's a shock. It's a mental shock for me because I'm used to seeing an image with 10 filters and all of their makeups on screen. And then I see them on a flight and I see them in real life. And I'm telling you, it's a shock. It's an absolute shock. I've had men and women come up to me with the same problem that sometimes we don't even recognize our partners. They look so different when we're out socially, but back home, they look so entirely different. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. So the point with children, again, it's communication. It's communication. Like, see, I don't like to preach, but I'll tell you what I do with my daughter because she's a girl. She's going to grow up seeing all of these things. We talk about these things. We talk about what's not real. We talk about what's real. We talk about what beauty really is. She is a girl. She is going to go through when she'll want to dress up. She'll want to be attractive. It's part of human life, but there's a way that we do it. And I believe that we as parents have that responsibility. So if we teach them right now that everything you see on social media is not real, guess what? They start to grow up knowing it's not real. Then they start to question, then, Dad, why do people do this? Why are they putting filters? Why don't they put their real pictures? Now we have a conversation. We have communication. It's a beautiful thing. But fortunately or unfortunately, Mugda, this process takes time. And that's why time is an investment with our children. It's the seeds. It's what we sacrifice right now. For the next like 10, your daughter's 10 years old, for the next 8 years or 9 years, you are going to have to make sacrifices. Something of lesser value for something of greater value. Every parent needs to. It's a choice. I'm not saying that they need to do it, but it's what we choose to do. Because if we put these seeds right now, their teenage years, 18, 19, their 20s and 30s are going to be way, way better. It's our responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the school. It's not the responsibility of a shrink. It is our responsibility to communicate, teach them what is real, what is not real. So am I saying that every woman should not wear makeup? Absolutely not. But we need to teach our children, what is our intention? I love to look good, great. But if I'm trying to feel more self-confident, my self-esteem goes up when I put makeup, we're sending the wrong signal to them. They're going to believe that they're not good enough the way they are. Your child may, not you, hypothetically, anyone's child may look good at 8, 9, 10. We don't know what, the hormones do when they're 13, 14, and 15, right? The point is, that's why we need to send out a message to them that it's okay. We need to teach them to respect people who look different, who weigh different. And we train our children to look at things and qualities in people beyond just body, beyond just skin. Because the way kids are growing up, I've heard teenagers look at a man or a woman who's slightly deformed and call them ugly. Literally call them ugly. You can't blame them. You can't say, oh, this child is mean. They've learned it from somewhere. Where have they learned it from? Society. Our society. Our society. And that's why all of us, we need to start training our minds, because only when we do the exercise on ourselves do we actually start. We should be looking at people, random people, and finding something good to say about them, because your children see this. That's how we train them. We don't sit them down. We should be able to say, oh, look at that person. A person may be obese, maybe whatever, but find something good to say about that person. Comment on that. That's how we train children. That's how we train ourselves. Otherwise, society is going to be, it's already our biggest curse. It is already every child's biggest curse is society. And I love how the people in this society are blaming society when all of us form that society together. So we need to make that change if we want to see that change in our kids and in our teenagers.
Absolutely. Look, this has been so enlightening. I know you only have half an hour today, but I think this is a series that we've started now, and I'm sure after this episode, there will be many, many more episodes with you where you are going to be enlightening us with your knowledge. But thank you so much, Luke, for doing
Thank you
this
so much.
audience. I'm sure it's going to be a huge hit, and we will do a part 2 on parenting because there's so many more questions that I want to ask.
Yeah, I just don't want parents to think they're doing it wrong. I mean, I've realized so many things that I've already done wrong, but we don't wallow in that. We move on to correction. What can we do right? What's needed? What's whatever. The point is, I don't want parents to feel that guilt, put themselves in a box, because like I said, who have we learned from? Most people don't want to listen to their own parents anyway. And we want to listen to society and social media and all. Our parents may not have all the answers, but they do have a lot of wisdom. And if we're lucky enough to have our parents alive, and if we're lucky enough to have great parents, we should take some wisdom from them and then combine it with wisdom on our own journeys, because we're always learning. All of us are always learning. So thank you so much, Mugdha. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Stay tuned for more. We're going to continue our journey, learning, sharing, and evolving.